All right, man. Hello to everybody. I'm a bit frazzled tonight. I feel like I've been running 110 for 2 weeks. I kind of actually have been. I hope everyone's doing well out there. Can everyone hear me okay? Can I get a yes or two?
I gotcha.
So Rose is going to be with me. We're going to cover a number of things here. Thank you guys all for coming. What do you think we ought to open with here, Rose?
Well, we can go through some of your solar images first, or we can talk about the recent YouTube outage and the solar wave.
Okay, let's just jump in. And as a matter of fact, let's get this party started. What we're going to do here is we're going to run the original 2012 Lunar Wave where all this started. And just so everybody knows, before we get out of the gate, before I get negative comments, I no longer run the work that I do on censorship platforms. Unfortunately, the footage you're looking at here was uploaded to YT. About a year after the fact, I think I was informed they claim partial ownership, and they've censored me, as everybody knows. I can't even search my own original Lunar Wave footage, which is still posted on YouTube. It's a lot of work to do this. I saved for years to get the equipment I'm doing this with, which is fantastic. 15 years ago, amateurs couldn't produce what I'm producing. And it takes hours and hours and hours on an average day to do this. And that doesn't even, address the processing. But after I saved for years for this equipment and I began to film, I've filmed for 2 years now. And just now I'm catching the solar wave. The solar wave is posted at Crrow777radio.com for members. And just to be perfectly clear, when I work my butt off for something that I create, it will never go on a platform where other people can claim ownership and control. So I hope that's out of the way. Jenny Spark, thank you. Thank you for helping me pay for the private server, which allows us to have free speech. So on the 5th, I was filming of this month. And I was running an animation. I was doing a 3-hour capture. And I want to try to explain, I mean, the fact that I caught this is literally providence, and I'll tell you why. When I do a animation capture, the moving images that I show you guys, what I do is I set up the camera. I try to have a minimum of 3 hours if the sky will allow me. So what happens is the camera catches 500 frames, then it shuts off for 30 seconds. Then it catches 500 frames. So right now, there are thousands of clips that I've never seen that I have made animations with. And not only did the lunar or the solar wave happen while those 500 frames were capturing, I was sitting here staring at it as it happened. It's almost beyond providence that it happened this way. And ironically, in the footage that I posted, the 19th member solar video where the solar wave is being shown to everyone for the first time, I also that day captured 2 chem planes. And if you go over to the website to see the footage, what's crazy about it is, like, I show you the normal views and then I try to change a little so you could see the waves. But when I jack the levels, you can see how much chemtrail debris is in the air. And I could see these planes, and I knew they were chem planes, but I didn't see them spraying anything. And yet, when you see that video, you'll see just how much is there. But anyhow, Rose, let's go ahead and show them some of the imagery that I've been producing recently. And also, for everybody, when you become a new member at Crrow777radio.com, you get free solar images. As you sign up, you get to pick free solar images. I think if you do a year, one of the, instead of just doing a month, you do a year, you get, I think, 2 or 3. I forget what it is. But these images come to you in a way where you can print them up to about 40 or 50 inches. They will print super duper big if you want to do that. But this image here that Rose is showing you, I caught last year, and it's an extreme wide field shot. But look how interesting it is. Notice how the light glow. And by the way, this is all natural. The only thing that is not real is the color. That's the only thing I added to this image. So on the upper right, look at the glow rings. They're concentric. But at the lower left, it's all wonky. You see that? On the lower left, go into the limb of the sun to the closest ring to the sun and follow that around. I think what we're seeing here is the glow of that other second sun, so-called second sun, offset a little bit behind our sun. At least that's my best guess right now. This image I actually just finished producing today. This was from the 14th of August, and there was a lot of surface detail, and this image is inverted, but this is kind of the quality of the images that you get when you come to the website, and you can see them or you can get them if you want. And also, Rose, after you run through some of these, let's show the images of people who came and got images. If you come and get images and you print them and you hang them, please take a pic wherever you hang it and send them to us, because we're collecting those, and I'll show you some of them. There's one. That's Rose's favorite shot. That's a sunspot from last year. Oh, someone put a whole bunch of them together. That's totally cool. That one's behind glass. Someone else, someone told me they printed on glass, which I really want to see. Wouldn't it be cool if you printed these on glass and then put like contact paper behind it and lit it from behind? I think that would be so awesome.
Yeah, there's an actual website that does that. I will look that up.
I'm waiting for someone to do it and send me a pic. That's a nice one. Wow, look at that skull is all crystallized. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the floor. I'm staring at comments. So if people have questions about the wave, fire away, and I'll answer any questions that I can. Here's my real hope. In 2012, when I shot this, I held the Lunar Wave. I held it for a year because I didn't want to do social media. And a year later, I was talked into uploading it, and I did. And literally all hell broke loose. It was a big deal at the time. 1 month later, the Flat Earth movement starts up, and everybody and their brother is referencing that clip and many of the clips that I had made because I'd been filming the moon so long. So at the time, there were many, many people out trying to film, trying to figure out what it is. And since I've announced the solar wave, there are people once again taking interest in the wave. Very smart people like Luke, our last guest. He's probably 20 times smarter than I'll ever be. I can't even read the math he writes. But people are starting to concentrate on it again. So the member video that I put up, I included every single thing that I shot for the entire month around the lunar wave with the dates on it. So if people want to try to go look and put things together and learn, they can. Right now, it is my current best guess that the sun is probably less than 1,000 miles away. From all the encoding from the societies and everything, I'm reasonably sure that both the sun and the moon are either 32 or 33 miles in diameter. Also, the Masonic symbol, the compass, the square, the geometry logo thing they've got there, that is almost certainly mapping the lights from the sky clock above and what's coming from below. But Rose, there was something I was going to have you. Oh, I know what it was. So Luke went and looked into the conditions of the sun that day, and I think you know better than I do what he found. Is that true?
Yeah, I just have a short paragraph written here to describe what was going on when you filmed the wave on the 5th of October between 8:30 and 11:30 Eastern time. For anyone out there who asked, we haven't heard of anyone else who happened to be filming the sky at that time, but there's the time frame for you if anyone wants to go out and see. So here's what was going on. On the day of the wave, official solar data showed something strange. The sun looked calm overall, but the solar wind suddenly doubled in speed and its magnetic field got much stronger. It was way higher than normal for a quiet day. There was no flare or explosion to explain it. So if you want the numbers, the specific numbers of what that's based on, you can email me and I'll forward it to you.
So I was happy when Luke brought his divine emission theory and included the waves as one of the things he wanted to explain. And I hope people listening will do the same. One of the things that happened with the first lunar wave is I kind of became the de facto, is this wave real guy? And I don't think it should be that way. People would come and say, well, what is it? You shot it. Well, I can't tell you for sure. I have ideas. I know for sure it shouldn't be called a lunar wave anymore. It's been shot in front of Jupiter, Saturn, now the sun, and many, many times in front of the moon. The best name that I could think of currently is maybe the firmament wave. Maybe that's what's going on. But my point is I hope other people will get involved and try to work on figuring this out. And Rainy Steps, thank you so much. That helps me pay for the private server each month. Appreciate it, truly. Thank you, thank you. But to get back to the point, when this was posted, nobody shot it and everyone was out filming. So many people, you know, when I first did this, there were very few people on YouTube with telescopes. As a matter of fact, the only ones I'm aware of were like real astronomers, not amateurs like me. And so a year and a half later, I shoot the second lunar wave, and this made the controversy oh so worse because many of the people were still saying I had faked it. But to get to the point, eventually other people, between 20 and 40 people back in the day, I knew and had been told and shown in most cases, had filmed the wave going over the moon. And the film Shoot the Moon on the website, Randy from Houston includes 2 that he shot. But what I was getting at is back then, everyone would send me the footage, which I appreciate. I want to see it. But then it became, you don't have a real wave unless Crow says it's a real wave. And that's not really the way it should be. I'm more than happy to give my input, but everybody should work towards trying to figure this out. There's something to it. And it's been filmed in front of, well, basically all the big luminaries now. The 2 big so-called planets, the moon and the sun. Hold on, I'm flipping through a...
Yeah, there's a bunch of questions that you didn't see me put on the screen. One of them, people are asking about the comet. And so a specific question was, do you think it will have an impact on the sun? So do you want to give your overall feelings about it?
Sure. I've been getting all kinds of messages. How come you're not talking about 3i Atlas? So first, I'm going to answer it this way. Everyone thinking about 3i Atlas would probably be better served to go listen to the old John Lennon song, Mind Games. 3i is 999, which is inverted 666, and that's just the little occult thing that everyone does, and they should do. Space has been misdescribed to you. We have a firmament. It is my current point of view that nothing comes in. Space rocks don't exist coming in. Those things falling are not rocks from space. I don't buy any of it, and I think what you're looking at is an attempt to get real-time feedback online because look how many people are worried about Three Eye Atlas and believing that it's full of aliens. That what's all the things I've heard? It's changing speed. It's full of aliens. It turned. It's a chemical makeup that is weird for some reason. It's gonna drop probes. I mean, it's ridiculous. I have a telescope, and my magical telescope doesn't tell me all those things. But here's what I can tell you about comets. If it is a comet, if it even exists as anything more than a manipulation. When I first started using telescopes in the 90s, I learned all I could from NASA and Hubble. That was my benchmark. Very quickly, I began to realize something was wrong. But here's my point. I could look at that point. I could look at any image of a comet, and I could name that comet. There's not too many of them, but comets were white, always white back then. You might get a hint of yellow. I think it might have been Hayataki, and you might get a hint of blue. But somewhere in the early new millennium, all of a sudden comets were green. And I went out and filmed a couple with a wide field camera, and they were green. That's a big change. But to get back to the point, I think it's pretty common knowledge that everyone suspects there will be a false flag alien invasion. Is it possible? I mean, think about this, that since the news covered this worldwide, you know beyond doubt it's an agenda, or it wouldn't be on the news worldwide. Is it possible they're putting their toe in the water to see how many people buy into this? There's nothing to be worried about as far as I'm concerned. And this is completely, literally mind games. So there's my point of view.
And there are 2 episodes that are specifically about the fake alien invasion prediction. And that would be all the way back for episode 169 with Wayne McCroy. And then more recently, episode 515. And the reason you did that updated fake alien invasion episode is because we saw a reigniting of the topic with the Las Vegas nonsense, where people said that they saw these large aliens in a crashed UFO in their backyard. But then we found out a couple days later that it was the same time as a supposed meteor shower, and there was no evidence to support any of it.
You know, one of the things the modern internet has done before AI is really messed with the way humanity thinks. And right now it is so much worse because now video is evidence of nothing. You have no way to know what's been AI'd, what's been faked, and what doesn't. The only way video matters anymore is if you know who shot it and you trust them, or you know enough about the video to know certainly that it hasn't been screwed with. And that's not too many videos. TikTok has become the biggest psyop tool that ever existed because they control all the content that people get to see. And then you have hundreds of thousands of reaction channels regurgitating over and over and over the same approved clips. And it's getting pretty bad. We believe in a lot of things that are beyond belief, like those things we see, those stars. That light's been coming for 100,000 years to get here. That is nonsensical. How is it that common sense doesn't make us pause and consider, really, is that something we should believe in? For crying out loud, the light from the sun left the sun 8 minutes ago. And when we begin to believe in these things, it screws with reality, or our reality, and the very basic tenets of time. And the more common sense approach is being shot down all over. When the flat earth movement came to be, they were quickly infiltrated, and they're constantly messed with because nobody wants that conversation to happen where common sense is brought to bear. Because groups like the Flat Earth, or even the Tartarian folks, whether you agree or you don't, and I don't agree with a lot of it, but I think a lot of it's important, they're trying to apply common sense. And that is a big deal from where I'm sitting, because so much of what we accept is completely bereft of common sense. And to get back to the waves, I mean, what could that possibly be? At this point, I really don't have a good guess even, other than to say maybe that wave's going through the firmament.
Or maybe it has something to do with Luke's emission pressure.
Maybe.
his divine emission theory based on emission pressure as being a precursor to electromagnetism. And I have a whole bunch of prerequisite readings for anyone who wants to dive into those ideas. Going back to the 19th solar investigation video that we have posted on the website for members, in addition to looking at the photos and the animations that you did and the solar wave, you also show the plane going by. And what I find so interesting is that in all this time, you've never really pointed out one of those like UFO orbs that you caught so much over a decade ago on your YouTube channel. And some of those orbs that you captured were always associated with chemtrails. And that brings us back to the alien idea, because people used to contact you and say, oh, thank goodness the orbs are here because those are the Pleiadians that are going to save us from the chemtrails. And then you would say, I don't accept that those are aliens saving us from the chemtrail. It's probably man-made technology having to do with geoengineering. But yet again, here you are capturing a solar wave during these interesting conditions, and we had all those chemtrails, and you saw an orb. So right. I'm not sure if that's all related.
So in the footage that's in the 19th member solar video where I introduced the solar wave for the first time, on that day, I captured 2 planes going over the solar disk. Here's the crazy thing. If you see both the clips, you'll think it's the same plane, but it's not. If you look where the wing goes over the sunspot, they were an hour apart. And the second one was, I think, about an hour. I filmed the wave first, and I caught the planes later. But they're like on such a tight trajectory that an hour apart, their wingtip goes over the same sunspot. But right before either the first or the second one goes by, one of these little orbs comes speeding by from the top of the frame to the right. I don't think there's any doubt that it is connected with the chem plane. It's on the same trajectory. It happens a second or two before the plane crosses. But back when I was in San Diego, we used to see orbs with our eyes, the little balls of light looking things. We could see them all the time. When I filmed the shooting orb, we saw 8 or 9 of them that day. We were watching them. And when I posted that footage from that point forward, we no longer saw them all the time with our eyes. We would occasionally catch them in footage, and we would notice it when we were viewing the footage later. But another interesting thing happened while we were in San Diego that I wasn't able to film, but we saw it. The Department of Homeland Security was starting to go ham in San Diego with their choppers and all the things they were doing. But there were these little chrome, they looked like little chrome balls, and they were flying next to these choppers. And I saw it on more than one occasion, and I know other people who saw it. It looks literally like a little steel ball that can make a right angle at speed. But they were flying around these planes. And so if you go look at the footage that I've just posted for everyone with the solar wave, and you're not going to be able to pull this off on a phone, by the way. It's going too quick and it's too small. If you get a full-size monitor, you'll see what I'm talking about. And maybe it is one of those little chrome balls. The other thing is when you see those chem planes way, way, way up there, if you get a good optical device, sometimes what you will see once it's magnified is the plane looks like a blinking ball of light. And when you back off, it starts to look like just the outline of a white plane with no markings. So something's going on there. Clearly, there's some technology. Maybe one of these days, if I ever get extra seconds, I'll try to get some of my tools on the daytime sky away from the sun. But it's just takes up so much time to film the sun because it's so much harder than every other kind of filming I've done. And when you go to see the wave, the last clip where I darken it down a lot so you can see the waves well, you'll see the amount of debris that these planes are leaving. I mean, it's shocking. Did Jason show up?
He's not here, but I think he was in the chat saying hello. Should we share an old clip of yours of an orb that I have?
Sure.
Up here? Okay, let's see. I'm going to fast forward it to the most interesting parts. All right. So this is just one example. I hadn't seen this one before, so I thought it was interesting and I time-stamped it. Here we go. And then afterwards, you talk about a comet that was on the news at the time called Comet Lovejoy. And I suspect that when we get to that part, you're going to be saying all of the same things that you just said when you addressed comets.
Yeah, there's something going on with comets.
Here we go.
Oh, this one. Okay. Is there audio on this?
Yeah, so you'll have to wait or just tell me to pause.
It's all right. We'll watch it.
Okay, so here is the video footage with the telephoto, the doubler from the good camera, the Nikon, and I'll zoom in on this object and we can just see how it moves.
Thank you, Stephen Cook.
So this is, you can't even see that.
Right, so this is a 600% zoom, and from here on in, every time I zoom on this object, it will be the same 600% zoom. This is real time, and you can see that there is some movement, but if you look very carefully at that kind of right egg point on the right and a little bit on the left, there's movement of some sort. And I did inversion, and I put this in Photoshop. I looked for anything else in frame, a tether going down or anything, and there's nothing there. And shots like this, where it's surrounded by blue sky, it would be very easy to see once you're manipulating things, and you know it's just there floating. This is 1500% speed to show the gradual movement.
Thank you, Dutch Patriot. If I remember correctly, my wife was watching this for an hour before I got out of bed in the morning, and this thing sat due east of us in Lemon Grove, California for hours and hours, nearly stationary, but not perfectly stationary. And you can see that the sky is clear. By the time I quit filming it, the entire sky has been chemtrailed shut. It's a milky mess.
Do you remember if this was before or after the chem bomb orb?
Before.
Probably before. Yeah, because if it was after, you would have rushed faster to film it. So it's interesting that you didn't see this one explode, but it reminds us that not all UFOs and orbs are the same. Sometimes it's obviously some kind of man-made technology like the exploding orb. Maybe after this one, we should play the original footage of the exploding one so people can see the difference.
Yeah, and the shooting orb. And thank you, Dutch Patriot. Truly appreciate it.
As it travels down. Now this is headed slightly north of east. So this again is zoomed. This is one of the later ones. The chem planes have come in. That's all chem debris coming down. And this is the same zoom you just looked at before, but it's much smaller, indicating that it's gone further away from us. And the chem planes, they came in low and just right on top of this thing. And another funny thing is too, that evening, late at night, it began to rain after all this chemtrailing.
Thank you, Cymatic Smoke.
Okay,
Good
so
vibrations.
This is a video taken earlier, and what I'm going to do is knock out all the ambient light so that you can look at both the right edge and the left edge, and you can see there's like a little, I don't even know how to describe it, kind of globular looking movement there. It's a really strange thing. I have no idea what this is. I've never seen anything like it. And it was there for hours, probably from about 7:30 in the morning until the chemtrails debris covered it up at, I don't know, maybe 10 or 10:30. Then, even then, we could see it for a long time in the chem debris. So anyhow, people have been asking for shots of Comet Lovejoy. So what I did is I took the Canon out and I just took some wide field shots to see if I could locate it, and I did. It took me about 3 or 4 minutes to locate it. I didn't realize it first, but there is Orion to give you an idea, because that's easy to find in the sky, of where Lovejoy is. It's going to be a little further up to the right now because it's been a few days since I shot this. I think 4 days, 5 days, something like that. But I have some other images that I've processed a little bit, and I will zoom in on Lovejoy. Now, the reason I put suspicious is because you'll see when I zoom in, it's a green blob. And I've said this before when I was working on the Rosetta, the whole fiasco charade that they've been doing with the Rosetta thing. Anyways, I'll get back to that in a second. There it is in the center. The green blob is Lovejoy. And again, comets never used to be this color, and I'll demonstrate it at the end, but I'm just completely suspicious of this stuff. The whole Rosetta Philae thing was shown to be a complete charade. Everything about it was wrong. It was hoaxy from the outset. And then when people started looking at it critically, there was so many things that were just clearly another one of the games that they're playing with us, from its discovery on, September 11th to just everything. Nothing was right about that. So if you have a camera, that was just the Canon that I used to take that. Anything with a wide field, you can shoot it. So in the green box is Orion, and the two arrows, one points to the Pleiades and the other one is Aldebaran, that orange star that's next to Orion. And the yellow line traveling up to the right is the days of this month.
Stop it now.
Now I shot around.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're back here, and how about we can now show the difference between that orb that was just sitting still for hours and this one that not only was moving fast, but exploded.
Right, and was almost certainly dropped by a chem plane. We hadn't had chemtrails for a while, which was unusual because it was wall to wall at that point. I could barely use my telescope anymore. And we didn't see it with our eyes, but we're reasonably sure a chem plane dropped this thing you're about to see.
Oh my God, honey. Keep a visual on him, because if he goes real quick...
Hold on, I don't know where he's at.
He's below the chemtrail.
Yeah. There he is. Okay.
Keep a visual on him, because if he hauls butt, I won't be able to track him.
Alright.
What is he doing?
He's just cruising. Can you see flames? Like the other one we had?
No.
Is it a balloon?
No. It's a pure white light. Okay, I'll take that. Yeah.
Alright.
Oh my God. It blew up.
Don't lose him.
It blew up.
Blew up into what?
I don't know.
Dang it, I had to move my eyes.
I've got the whole thing on film. Now there's a little one. They're dropping these. It frickin' blew up.
Like a powder thing? Stop.
Yeah, it's leaving a trail of chemical up there, but there's still a core.
Here comes, now right above.
I can't.
Okay.
I'm tracking this thing. I'm still got the debris.
Here comes the plane hauling ass.
I got the debris from the explosion. It frickin' blew up.
Well, I don't know what blows up mean, honey.
It means it blew apart into a million pieces. And there's still some falling on us.
Okay, and then you've done other videos that have more breakdowns of what came out of the explosion, which was a small red dot attached to a lanyard and twirling around.
Yeah, I started tracking the white thing, but there was a little red thing, and I'm reasonably sure, because I did research at the time, I think that little red thing was a box with a beacon and an antenna, and it basically falls, and it says, if you find this, call this number, or that kind of thing. And we're 99% sure it was dropped out of one of the planes, and it was clearly there to collect data of some kind. When we first saw it, we thought it was one of the orbs I was telling you about, that we never saw an orb when chemtrails weren't around. One time we saw an orb coming out of the western sky, and we were amazed because there was no chemtrails. Sure enough, a chemtrail was laid in the western sky, and the little orb traveled all the way across the sky to get to it. And do you have the shooting orb footage, Rose?
I can grab that just a second.
So we should show everybody the shooting orb. This is another one. like right now, the original Lunar Wave only has 1 million views. And what's funny is I just got an inside look at something that I can't talk about, and we know it's got over 20 million. But the other one is the shooting orb we're about to show you, which kind of got shuffled out of view. But what it is these little balls of light were always around chemtrails. And before we posted this footage, we saw them all the time with our eyes. This one drops into a chemtrail, goes against the prevailing wind. The chemtrail is going one way, the little orb goes the opposite, and it shoots like a plasma beam more than once into a chemtrail. It's crazy.
Yeah, so this is the specific one that people were like, oh, look, it's obviously not random. They have a direction. They have a purpose. They're firing something into the chemtrail. So they're obviously the Pleiadians saving us from the chemicals of the chemtrail. But that's
obviously
actually what we think. All right.
Craziness here. I've got 13 clips to go through. I shot all day and I got these orbs. And as I was coming in to do the edit, I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw that this thing actually shoots. And I'm not sure what it's shooting at, but there's all this cotton candy looking crap falling out of the sky, and these little, you can see them right now, they're shooting by. They look like, I don't know, these white things with tails. And for the first time we see this cottony looking stuff falling. But anyhow, this orb's going to go into the cloud, and keep your eye right on the orb.
That's a chemtrail, not a cloud.
Shoot the first time, and actually, as I did this edit, I saw it shoots twice, and I'll break them both down. So it's just kind of meandering through the cloud here. All these things are shooting through the sky. These little white-tailed things. Okay, here it comes. It's getting close. Keep your eye fixed on the orb, and there it is. It's shot. Now I'm going to break that down. It shoots again right here, but I'll have to break that down.
Do you see that?
It's much quicker.
That little thing fired a plasma beam.
Shot. There it is.
Crazy.
I paused it for you. Do you want to?
It's just crazy. I think I do a backwards and forwards for people on their phones. This will be hard to see, but like later, go back and look at this on a full screen. He shoots twice. Actually, I think he shoots 3 times, but the last time is very difficult to see, and it appears to be straight down.
Yeah, I think that you play it back in different speeds and contrasts and brightness to make it more obvious.
Go ahead, play.
I'm going to break it down so that you see it go forward and reverse, and you can see the projectile or the beam or whatever the heck it is shooting. Here comes an inverted color. Here comes the shot. There's the shot.
That's the most obvious to me.
And it clears. This is actually quite a long clip. I've had to edit it down, and like I said, I've got 13 of these to go through, and now that I know these things are intelligent or intelligently controlled, I have a lot of frame by frame work. All right, here comes a better breakdown of the actual shooting. Here it comes. There it is. Reverse, forward, reverse, forward, and then it goes on its way. This is in real time. And now I'm going to show you the same shot here. There's the same shot. Now I'm going to break down the other shot, and I'm going to do it forward and reverse. I couldn't see if it was coming from the object, but when I did this, I could see that it is. So it's shooting something, and maybe it's shooting these little white-tailed fish-looking things that are just zooming all over the sky. Cotton crap falling out of the sky. Okay, here it is, the original clip. Unmanipulated. Actually, there may be a little brightness. I'm going to zoom in and just run it all the way through to the portion I edited out, so you can just watch, and you'll notice these white things zooming through frames. But by the time I edit these other 13 clips out, who knows what we'll get. It takes quite a while to do. At this point, I can safely say these are intelligent things, or they're being intelligently controlled. It seems to me that they're probably not with the chem planes. They're not on the same mission as the chem planes. Otherwise, why would they be shooting things?
Pause it for a second, Rose.
That's just my guess. That's an opinion.
So VC989, if you've been watching me a while, you'll know that back in these days, I shot for over half a decade, day and night, nonstop. So to call this random is a bit disingenuous. I literally shot hundreds of thousands of hours. of chemtrails in the daytime and weird objects like this, and the moon every night that I could. So it was anything but random. Go ahead.
Nothing more, but I can't for the life of me figure out why they would be shooting into the chemtrails if they weren't trying to neutralize or stop something. Okay, here comes the shot. There it is, and then you're going to see the second one in real time. It's so quick you can't see it. Anyhow, there it is. I've got a ton more footage. And
so yeah, back in the day, the way this actually happened was as we were coming up to 2008 and the crash, I had been freelancing for corporations to make a living, doing digital stuff, websites, whatever, anything digital, video, marketing, business plans. I was doing it all. And it came to that point, and I said, I'm done. I'm never working for another corporation again. And at that point, I didn't know how I was going to pay my rent or anything else. And I just decided I'm finally going to do something I've always wanted to. And I broke out my scope that I bought in the 90s, dusted it off, and I turned a camera on for over half a decade. During that time, I upgraded. I got my first kind of not so great solar telescope. At one point, I had a 12-inch Schmidt Cassegrain that Meade made in Tijuana, no longer good quality. I made them take that back. I ended up with the Celestron 11 that I have now. But the point is literally from the time I walked away from corporate life, I never stopped filming until I came to Rhode Island. And it was just about 6 years straight. You'll be surprised, actually, if you make it a mission to film every day, not just for 5 minutes, but like for an hour or two. You'll be surprised, particularly now because there's so many things up above our heads, how much stuff you'll catch. But at the time, almost nobody believed in chemtrails. I was filming it. I was trying to say this is happening. So many people wouldn't believe it. But like I said, the minute we posted that footage of that shooting orb, that was one of the last times we ever saw with our naked eyes orbs out in the open, which is kind of a weird thing if you think about it.
Yeah, and not a lot of people even spend time looking at the sky in the first place. And at that time, there weren't a lot of people that had cameras and filming the clouds. So it is possible that a lot of people even have captured these anomalies like the orbs and the waves, but since they're not looking for it, and as we've seen here where you have to increase the brightness and the contrast, it's hard to notice. But there's other kinds of orbs too that you've captured at night, like the ones with the magnetic halos, which are obviously different than something like the thruster, where it had those 3 lights on it. So you know that one's man-made. But then when you look at the magnetic orb, it makes you wonder if there might be something interdimensional or supernatural about it. So would you say that some of the UFOs might have a metaphysical aspect to them, or do you think all of them are still man-made technology?
Look, man, I'm going to lay down a piece of logic that I live by. I make up little rules or laws for myself to help me think. And before I do, is that Teo, Animus? Thank you so much. I can answer that question, and I would say no. In my view, everything's man-made because it's the common sense view, and I would rather be wrong than misled. But let me lay this down, and I do this all the time. Suppose you were walking in the desert, and you've been walking 3 days away from a city. You're in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a desert, and all of a sudden you see a cabin. And as you walk up to the cabin, there are no footprints, no indicator that anyone had been around. And you go inside and it's all dusty and it doesn't look like it's even been used, but there's a clean plate and a peanut butter sandwich on the counter. Who put it there? Now, if we're going to do what the majority of people on YouTube do, we're going to say, well, clearly aliens beamed that in from the Pleiades. But if we're going to apply common sense, we're going to say, I know that human beings make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Just because I can't figure out how we got it here, I'm reasonably sure that human beings make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And that logic applies to the shooting orb. Of all the things I've ever shot, that orb comes the closest to, to be able to say, wow, is that a little green man? But no, I'm sorry. It's not a little green man, and it will never be a little green man until I shake hands with a little green man. And I don't think that day is coming anytime soon.
Have you thought about the thruster UFO in a while? Because that one I think is really unique. I could even bring that one up as well. And we didn't get a chance to talk about your exact equipment right now. What equipment you're using right now that captured the solar wave?
All right, I'll cover the equipment I have now. So for years and years, I saved up. If you go back to my old footage from 2014, where I first discovered the so-called second sun or whatever that is, I was using a Coronado, and it's not very big and it's not very good quality. So I saved and I saved and I saved and I saved, and I bought a 130, there's the scope there, 130 millimeter Lunt solar telescope. It's actually universal. I can take that big red band in the back is the Etalon that does the solar work. There's two of those. I can double stack it, or I usually single stack, but I can take all that off and I could film other things like a regular telescope. But this is the guy who sold it to me said only 3 of them have been sold in North America. So I saved up a long time to be able to get quality stuff, because if you're going to film and you're going to use the Spud camera 1000, you're wasting your time. So that's the way I feel about it. So I always try to get better. So with this dedicated solar telescope now, I can shoot at a level that very few amateurs can. There are, like, if you go to some of the amateur astronomy sites where they post their images, you will see how many people, amateurs, are out there filming the night sky, even the sun. There are people out there shooting the sun way better than I can, because their equipment is better and where they are is better. So after I saved up for all this stuff and I got the best I could get, I'm dedicating to try to get, the best views of this I can, and trying to learn what I want to know. Like someone right now is asking me how far the sun is. In my view, it is almost certainly less than 1,000 miles away. In my view, it is almost certainly 32 or 33 miles in diameter, which is constantly masonically encoded, as is their logo, showing how the light comes down and the light goes up. Those are the angles, or one of the things the angles are probably representing. But with this new equipment, I can share, like I'm doing now, footage that lets people not be fooled into this nonsense that Chinese has a fake sun simulator and clearly our sun is fake. Well, no, it's not. I know they have a patent. I've seen it, but I guarantee you that thing right there is not a simulation. And by the way, there's another thing behind it that may be a second sun. So I'm interested in trying to learn some things that are true, because when I first got my first telescope, which I'd wanted since I was a kid, which I actually went, the only time I'd gone in debt to get my first telescope like that was when I bought a car. I think I was $2,400 or something in debt right out of the Marine Corps. That was a lot of money to go in debt. And I was trying to learn from NASA and Hubble, but slowly over time, I started poking holes in everything. And I began to realize something's wrong here. At first, I thought it was me, which is probably normal. But over time, I began to realize we have not been told the truth. And I think we deserve to know where we are. If you don't know where you exist, how can you possibly know where you can go? And that's, so many people say, I don't care. Who cares whether it's flat or round? Really? Really? You don't want to know where you exist, because if you don't know where you exist, you don't know where you can go. And also, thank you, Fuzzy Booger. Thank you so much. So I think these are big, important questions. And since, in my view, all the truth that I can learn is provided by nature, it sure would be nice to know what nature is, how far it goes, how far away from me it is, and all these things. Nature doesn't stop at the edge of the beach at the ocean. If I look up, that's all part of our environment here. And in my view, the luminaries above our head, they're here for us. They're right here with us. And when you were young and your mom told you the world doesn't revolve around you, well, I'm sorry. Yes, it does. We are the center. We are important. We are spiritual beings that have been gifted the divine spark of life. We have been gifted free will, and it's a big deal. And there are forces in this world working nonstop to mislead us, to fool us into believing things we shouldn't, and to not be able to determine where are we and where can we go. And that's why I'm doing this, because I do want to know where we are, and I do want to know where I can go.
I have the thruster queued up.
Cool.
All
so
right.
This one was shot. It's going to look like it's dark, but that's because I had a light filter on the scope, a city light filter. So it's not quite dark as I'm filming this. And again, I'm put in a position where I've got to manually track a moving object, which is very difficult with a telescope.
So we'll see how it does, but the edge is fuzzier because of the ambient light. Here it comes at the top. Now you're going to see the thrusters kick off, and I know a lot of people have said sunlight and other things, but I've been doing this a long time. That's not sunlight. That is fire or heat coming off what looks like some kind of a thruster, and if you consider the distance that this probably is from me, if it is low Earth orbit, you know, that's a couple hundred miles. And so when you consider the size of anything heating up to that degree, it's hard to think about. I mean, would that thing be burning fuel? It's hard to imagine that that thing's burning some kind of fuel. By the way, that object on the left is just junk on my camera sensor that I have since cleaned off. You'll see it a couple of times. Okay, here comes another view. This is inverted with some channels. I flipped it over this way because it makes the flare a little more evident. It's just very difficult. The last view that we take will probably be the best, but again, we don't have the sharp edges because the backlighting had all this ambient daylight. So here comes the closest view of this object we're going to have. And I had to do a few editing tricks to get this view because you can tell it's not that sharp, but I mean, you can kind of get a decent look at this depending on the device you're using. And it's just a really interesting object. I have no idea what this thing would be. A lot of people have offered up what they think it might be. In my opinion, I find it hard to believe this thing.
So yeah, that was almost certainly human tech. I mean, you're looking at 3 thrusters. It reminded me of the idea of a capsule falling back in. And at the time, many people went and looked at all the, you know, the phony baloney rocket launches and all that to try to match it up, but nobody could. But this is the kind of thing that you bump into. I don't know how many clips I've shot that are interesting, but it's got to be hundreds at this point. And I think there's something to putting your intention into it. Like when I go out to film the sun, I say my prayers, I sit down, I try to clear my mind, and I try to focus my intention to the universe and let the universe know I'm here to pay attention. I hope I can see something. And you catch a lot of things, and some of them are hard to describe, to put it, you know, plainly.
Yeah, so I think it's safe to say that all of the unknown objects are man-made technology, but the lunar wave, solar wave, firmament wave, space wave, whichever you prefer to call it, that could be part of nature that we're observing.
Well, I think it certainly is. I mean, it is organic. You know, this is ironic. When I first shot it, when the wave starts at the bottom of the moon, I had panned the camera down, which is unusual. I always kept it centered because I didn't want to miss anything. But I didn't see it. I pan up and the wave catches up. Well, I didn't realize that for a while, and that was proof that it was a filmed event. But when I first saw it, I thought, oh, my equipment's failing. And that's how kind of deluded I am, how I deluded myself. I know what digital equipment looks like when it fails. It's not in organic waves. It's in lines and boxes and pixelation and that kind of thing. You know, luckily I didn't delete it before I figured that out for good. But it's almost certainly nature doing what nature does in some way. Unless we get to a point where someone can, you know, pinpoint this is what's causing it. But isn't it interesting that it's always 2 waves? What I consider to be real waves always come in pairs.
You talk about over the years, over and over again, the angles of joy and the angles of sorrow. And the angles of sorrow would be 90-degree angles. And 90-degree angles do happen in nature, like with certain kinds of crystal formations. But the point is, when you think about it symbolically, is the energetic flow. If you look in your mind at an L and compare that to a Y, the energy is going to come down and smash into the corner. But with a Y, if they're coming from the top, they're going to come together and keep flowing. That's the idea. And in Luke's episode about divine emission theory, he's talking about how existence on the very, very, very smallest scale, after an initial pulse, there are all these, I guess, effects or just tiny pieces. I don't know what to call them, but they're hitting each other. And it's because of the asymmetry. It's not symmetrical because it's not like a 90-degree angle. When those forces come together under certain conditions, it's going to then start drawing in energy and creating what he's calling a scalar knot. But my point is that it seems like the asymmetry or the knot, the square angles, is what kind of perpetuates this existence.
You know, what's stunning is we live in an era where things that my grandparents' generation knew that we don't even have any inkling of, and the angles of joy and angles of sorrow are among those things. How can it be that we used to know such a common sense thing about nature? Would we build all our houses in boxes and rectangles if everybody knew that we're creating angles of sorrow? I don't know, but it's time that we get back these things and share them out. And some of Luke's ideas are fantastic. I mean, if he comes up with a unified theory, that would be crazy. When I was young, I was told in school that physics one day is going to make this little short, elegant equation, and it's going to unify everything. Except there's a problem. In my lifetime, the exact opposite has happened. Everything has become a theory, and we make things up to make our theories work. And, you know, that was why I put forward my law of theory that I use for myself. It basically says the longer a theory exists, the less value it has, and the more likely it becomes that it'll be used for scientism or things that aren't helpful. But when we look around today, I mean, everything is theoretical. When did we get to the point where we don't know things? We live in nature. Nature provides all the truth there is. So why are we constantly making up theories that never get proved when we could learn what is actually true? We're surrounded by it.
I have the visuals associated with episode 650 with Luke here. Shall we go from the macro to the micro and see what he's talking about? It's not that long.
Sure.
Okay, here we go.
Like emitters, right? So they could represent planets, they could represent atoms, they could represent even the smallest particles of like quarks of you know, whatever you want to represent them as, because the micro works exactly like the macro does. So as you'll see, there's some translucent white spheres that expand out from these smaller orange spheres. These are pressure waves. So everything that basically exists for the most part in a stable condition sends out these pressure waves. Now, depending on their values, it depends on how far out that wave goes, how strong that wave goes, how coherent that wave is, of like whether we can see it, whether we can feel it, whether we can measure it. I mean, at this scale right here that we're looking at, this is absolutely crazy tiny, like well below the Planck scale. So these things send out a pulse, and as they meet, you'll see this kind of green translucent sphere created. This is basically one version of a rebound wave. So it works the same way as normal wave theory, to where you can have destructive interference, you can have compound interference, or constructive interference, as long as the waves are actually at the same scale that they can interact with each other. They will, once the wave hits and they all hit each other, they send out basically a return wave. Now, in the middle where they meet asymmetrically, they create something called a scalar knot or a torsional knot. In Maxwell's equations, this is what the three torsional aspects look like. So because those pressure waves hit at three different angles and directions, it basically caused a vortex, right? You could say a pressure vortex. This is currently what quantum theory understands as a virtual particle. But this actually has structure to it. This actually exists. This is completely deterministic. If you get values for this, you can understand, everything that it's going to do, everything that it's going to create, everything that it could turn into.
All right, there it is. And one thing I truly appreciate about that is he opens up by saying the micro acts exactly like the macro. And for decades, I've had a problem with the idea that, everything in the big world has this set of rules, but when it gets small, we got to ditch these rules and go to a different set of rules. On the face of it, that defies common sense. So it'll be interesting to see where Luke takes this.
Yeah, well, it was really interesting that prior to the recording the episode 650 with Luke, he wasn't familiar with Walter Russell. And then when he went to look at Walter Russell, he realized that his theory matched up with what Walter Russell was showing, and that Walter Russell's diagram, when bent over sideways, it applies to Schrodinger. So it's very fascinating. But
that's another thing. We've had Walter Russell's work since the early 1900s, thereabouts, when I think it was another doctor friend put up the cash to print that gorgeous book, The Universal One. During COVID, we almost lost the Walter Russell Museum. We had them on, and so many people took an interest and went and bought books. They survived it. And here's a man who proclaims he was illuminated for nearly a month, something like that, and he wrote all these equations. And to me it's like Tycho Brahe. There are certain people, Walter Russell being one of them, it's the ring of truth you hear, and it's the reality vibration you feel when you go over what they've offered the world. And here we've had this for so long, and so few people are aware of it. And someone like Luke bumping into that's awesome.
There's a common idea, whether it's the Bible or just symbolically the idea of the breath of life, the spirit or the pulse. And so a lot of people are talking about how that applies to the micro and the macro. So we know that human beings have lungs, and so we have a respiratory system. And we know that plants, they have leaves and they do photosynthesis, which is like their form of breathing. And so it's possible that these luminaries in the sky clock are also conscious emitters who are breathing and sending out these electromagnetic pulses that affect both the earth and human consciousness. I am really digging that idea.
Well, you're making me think about all the things that we've lost. Like, again, my grandmother's and grandfather's generation knew what their breath was. Your breath is your spirit. In old alchemical treatises, you're taught this very early on. All young people used to know this. If we would have went into 2020 and 90% of everyone would have understood that their breath was their spirit, how many people would have been lining up so quickly to veil that gift of life with the divine spark that's granted us from above, your spirit? How many people would have covered their spirit if they would have simply known the truth of what we used to know? And, we're in the era now where all these things are going to come apart. There will be a golden era in our future at some point. How long, I don't know. But all created things see their end, and we all know everything goes in cycles. So this kind of hardship time we're doing now, it'll come to an end. But on the tail of it, the people who have gone through will remember all of the just unacceptable things that we've experienced recently. And that will probably project us towards a much better world.
So we just released the 19th solar investigation video for members, and that video is featuring the solar wave that was captured on October 5th. And I'm going to share the screen to show what it looks like on the video page for members. So you would go to the video page and click on the most recent video right here. And there was recently a YouTube outage. And I remember I was, stressed out because we were trying to go live right when that outage was happening. And the outage occurred when we were trying to share the episode with Fortune. So that's what I wanted to remember for you to talk about the most recent episode with Fortune, which was covering the French Revolution. Because of that outage, that first free hour was totally suppressed on YouTube, and it just feels like people didn't see it, or the numbers just stopped. The video stopped being suggested. So how did you feel about the most recent episode with Fortune?
It was awesome. You know, I hadn't talked with him a lot recently. I used to talk with him a lot more. He's kind of in the middle of nowhere now. But we covered a lot of things. It's always great to catch up. That man is like beyond a walking encyclopedia. He speaks multiple languages. It's incredible what he knows. It's literally incredible. But I love catching up with Fortune, and every private talk I have with him, I end up learning something. I know Jason recently exchanged information with him too.
I saw that. He sent us pictures. That was awesome. The piece of trivia that I remember the most from the episode with Fortune was that the Rothschilds knew a day in advance that Napoleon was going to win Waterloo.
Yeah.
And because of that battle and knowing who was going to win, they bought the British pound sterling. They bought
the stock exchange. Yeah.
They bought a government,
everything.
A family.
Yep.
Now, when I heard him explaining that, I felt so foolish, because in my mind, even though I had taken history classes, I didn't even imagine that Rothschild family existing at the same time as Napoleon. Like, it's like two different timelines in my mind. But then here, this is going on. Everything's tied together. And it reminds me of the scarcity episode 306, when you and Jason were covering things like gold and natural resources, and how there's the illusion of scarcity that is being foisted upon us. And we had that insider information from someone who worked for a mining company that was mostly focusing on copper and a little bit of uranium that they would find. But in the 25, 30 years that longtime miners had worked there, every so often they will come upon a massive nugget of gold. And I'm talking like as big as a VW bus. And so when that happens, if they were to take that out of the ground every time that happened, it would destabilize the economy. So what they do is they bring in international security to both physically and digitally GPS it. They cement it over, and then they just keep on digging. So all the while, they know where it is. And whenever they want to, they can bring it out of the ground and get it minted and add it to the economy. So they're always in control all the time with this financial economy.
It's actually worse than that, because the House of Rothschild still sets the standard value for gold. If gold or silver was allowed to have the market set its value, an ounce of silver would, it's been said, well over 50 grand. You know, and this is what's gone on. But we're coming to the end of this era, and that's what we're doing right now. The people who have had control are lining up for the big game to try to get it all under iron-fisted control and policed by technology, AI. And if they get their way, we'll have a hell of a bad time for a while. But I am of a mind that this is nobody's playground, and the jig is about up. It's just unfortunate because, you know, a lot of people are no longer here just because of 2020. So yeah, you got to stand on what you believe. You've got to do what's right, and we've got to get better at this. We need to treat each other more appropriately and not be so easy fooled into wars and hating on each other all the time. But I think we're about there, Rose. And I wanted to say, I hope you guys make it over to the website and check out the footage. Please spread the word. I hope a lot of people become aware that a lunar wave was filmed. And I hope a lot more people get interested in filming the sky. But when the lunar wave happened, in a way, it ended up unifying a lot of people, because at that point, there were very few people with telescopes online in the community that I reside in. There were actually one other guy. His name was Paul. Later, the first person who came along is no longer with us. Bruce Sees All kind of picked up after I had laid off, and he began with a very large 14-inch telescope going. I think he was more interested in the alien ideas. But the point is, when I first started doing this, there was almost no one in this space. Now there are many people in this space. Anyhow, I hope to see you all over at Crrow777radio.com. If you become a new member, you get free solar image you can print. If you do that, please take a pic and send it. Are we forgetting anything here, Rose?
No, I think that does it.
All right. Last call for questions. Does anyone have one last burning question? Because we're getting ready to wrap up here.
There were a couple of questions that came throughout the show, but we can just wait a second and see if anyone wants to ask something last minute.
David Reif, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Helps pay for the private server that allows us to keep free speech.
As you may recall, Crow, this is David Reif, who's married to Jenny Spark, who you also saw in chat. And they were with us for episode 522. And so that reminds me to bring up that we have an entire natural birth playlist if people are thinking about bringing in new life into the world.
Oh, yeah. Cool. I just want to say, when anyone's on my platforms, where you're in my house, there's one rule, and that rule is be polite. You don't have to agree or accept anything, but you need to be polite when you're here, because I will shut the door, and I'm not kidding, and I won't warn you. If you're rude here, I will shut the door. It's hard to have a meaningful conversation with underhanded things going on or rudeness going on, but I don't really see any more questions. Anything else we're going to cover here, or shall we wrap up?
No, just come and check out the new video, and then also the last 3 episodes were really good, like 648 with Mario from Symbolic Studies, 649 with Fortune on the French Revolution, and 650 with Luke on divine emission theory. So there's a bunch of really interesting topics that are covered, and that's it.
All right. So no, I was not expecting the lunar wave. I was concentrating on doing a 3-hour capture for animation, and I just saw someone ask about a beginner rig. To get a beginner's telescope, it's all about budget. What I suggest is you call a scope shop. The best one's gone now. OPT didn't make it through COVID. That was a real loss. That was the best scope shop in the country. It was right above San Diego where I used to be. But like a Gina Astro, they're out there. What you do is you call, tell them what you want to do, tell them your budget, and they will steer you in the way. It's not as simple as it used to be. Scopes have changed a lot since I was back at it in 2012, 2013. Everything is technical now, but that's what you do. Have a budget, call a scope shop, and they will help you get set up and help you figure out what you need to do. Does the sun always have a corona? I'm not sure exactly if I get what you're asking, but yes, there's always a, what is called typically a corona, that surface area. As a matter of fact, a lot of the hydrogen alpha filming is looking at that particular surface area in those wavelengths.
And there are a lot of great minds that are thinking that the sun, whatever it is, may be hollow, and you're capturing it in the hydrogen alpha wavelength. And so we know that at least on the outside, if it's an outer shell, hydrogen's involved.
Yeah, it's incredible. Sometimes even now when I sit down to try to produce still images or an animation, I just feel so privileged to be able to film at this level. It's literally crazy. If you go back and look at my footage on my other rig, solar rig from 2014, it's not even in the same ballpark. And yet I was able to discover that there's another body out there. And that's going to come into play too. If I am correct that that is related to the sun or a second sun, that's going to come into play in the not too distant future. But I think that's it, Rose. I'm ready to wrap her up. Are you?
Yep, I'm ready. Let's do it. I hope everyone has a great night.
Yeah, I want to wish you guys all a happy, healthy, and higher-minded new era. And truly, I hope you guys come over and join us. Get on that private server where free speech is the rule. It's what we do. It's why we do it. And come check out what we've caught here. It's quite amazing. And there it is, man. Cheers.